one of the most crucial and critical decisions that a person makes in their life. Therefore, this decision must not be taken lightly. Allow me to elaborate more on this by discussing in tonight's lecture some of the important steps that we should consider to ensure that our selection and choice is a good choice and not a bad one, so that we are not regretful afterwards. The first of these steps that we should consider and take, number one, to elevate, and I'll say this briefly, but I want you to contemplate on it when you go today, inshallah. To elevate our character, ourselves, to the level of perfection that we expect of our desired partner. Say that one more time. To elevate ourselves to the level of perfection that we expect from our desired spouse. And this is important, my dears. Oftentimes, I, as a suitor, neglect working on myself and building my character and building myself, and expect to find the most perfect spouse. That is not only unfair to that most perfect spouse that I am dreaming of and aspiring to be with, but it is also unfair for me to think with this mindset, because I'm setting myself up for failure. Two friends were having a conversation one day, and they were talking about marriage, and one of them has passed the age of 35 and is still not married. So the second told him, his friend who was married, says, "My friend, I feel bad for you. You're 35 and you're not married yet. What's the reason?" He says, "I'm still looking for the right spouse." He says, "You've never met a woman before in your life that you thought was suitable for you?" He says, "Once I have met a woman that I thought was suitable for me." He says, "So what were her qualities?" He says, "The most perfect qualities. Everything you would want in a spouse." So he says, "How come you didn't go for that woman?" He says, "The problem is she was also looking for a perfect husband, which I was not." Idea is we must take this serious as youth, as youngsters who aspire to find partners who will make us happy, inshallah, who we can live together and grow together. We need to take this point serious. I need to work on myself as a youth from now to elevate my spiritual condition, to elevate my knowledge, to elevate my religiosity, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can help me and guide me to the person who is at that level. I cannot be expecting the most perfect, but I myself are nowhere, or I'm nowhere near that perfect person that I aspire to be with. This is the first step, to elevate ourselves to the level of perfection of the desired spouse. The desired spouse, we want to be at a specific level. Well, we need to work to that level with hopes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pave the way for us to find that spouse. Number two, to set the standards before the search and not tailor standards after the search. Now, what do I mean by that? Oftentimes, and I'm talking about real cases here, I'm in college, and of course, I meet other people. I'm a human being, I have emotions, I have feelings, and I allow my feelings and emotions to drive me towards that potential spouse. But without having set any standards, I fall in love with a person. And when I come to get to know this person, the shock is that they're absolutely on the other side of the planet in terms of faith. For example, they don't embrace the religion of Islam. They don't embrace the religion of Islam. And then I start to think, okay, so maybe we can let that go. They don't have to be a Muslim. I start to compromise because I haven't come with a mindset that there are certain standards that I have to look within. In other words, there is a specific circle that I have to look within because there are set standards. Sometimes it is even tougher and harder when in the situation of a sister, of a mu'minah, who ends up falling in love with someone who is outside of the folds of Islam. And she would call and ask, what do I do? I had one case in Arizona one time, years back, where the girl said, you know what, I can't do anything. I'm in love with this guy, but he's a Christian, and I want to get married to him. Is there a solution Islamically? Well, sorry, Islamically there's no solution. You just can't marry a non-Muslim. As a woman, you have to marry a Muslim. The marriage will be invalid, be unlawful. But Islam is peaceful, I thought. Islam is all about love and tolerance, I thought. I said, yeah, Islam preaches love and tolerance, but this is a legal issue. We can't cross that line. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most kind, the most loving, has prescribed certain conditions for the spouse that we can marry and the spouse that we can't marry. Or this brother, for example, who says, you know what, I found this person that attracted me and I said this is the person and that's it and there's nobody else. But she's actually not even from the people of the book. So what do? You cannot get married to someone as a man who's a non-Muslim, not from the people of the book. Even from the people of the book, according to some maraja, you can't marry them based on obligatory precaution. What I mean is sometimes we don't put the standards first. We put our emotions first. Then we say, let us tailor standards that are already there in that person. And then we start looking for justifications. And then we start complaining. So we have to set the standards first. If you're a religious person, and of course all of you are inshallah practicing Muslims, and the number one quality that needs to be in the back of your mind, and not only in the back of your mind, also on the front of your mind, that's more important, is that the person must be a practicing Muslim. How can you grow together with someone who's not practicing from day one? No, I'll help them to begin the process of practicing. Don't set yourself up for failure. Most of the time it doesn't work. Sorry to break it to you. Yeah, I know he's an alcoholic, I know he's addicted to drugs, I know he has all these issues, but you know, I have hope that I can change him. 6 months down the road, they're calling and complaining, we want a divorce, we can't do this anymore, he's abusive, he's this, he's that. Well, we told you that this is not the right person. Well, I thought I was going to change him. These decisions are serious. You can't just make a selection with hopes to change that person or to make them the person you want as a partner for you for the rest of your life. So this is the second step. The third step is consultation. There's no harm and no shame in seeking consultation from those who are wise, from those who know, especially your parents. Oftentimes, some of our youth underestimate the wisdom and experience that their parents have. My dad's from an older generation. He's old school. My mom's old school. They don't know, what it is and how it is to be a young person, to want to be married to someone from this generation. No, trust me, they know. They've been there. Maybe the circumstances are a little bit different, but they have wisdom. Make use of that wisdom. And more importantly, respect them, and respect their feelings, and respect their decisions. How many parents were left out and their hearts were broken because the child decided to go their own way without even giving any respect and consideration to their father or to their mother? And I'll tell you, most of what I've seen in these cases, they don't see success. They don't see success. Why? Because they went against their parents. It's one thing if your parents were preaching something wrong and you go against them. But it's another thing if they're saying, we see that this person is not suitable for you. You're just looking from an emotional lens. We're looking from a wise lens. We're looking at the bigger picture. So why don't you respect our decision? Take consultation from us. Islam doesn't say that your parents have to make decisions on your behalf when it comes to choosing the person that you will live with and sleep with for the rest of your life. But at the same time, Islam says, consider your parents, consider their opinion, consider their judgment. If you don't find wisdom in their judgment, consider that of those who are elder in the community, older relatives, community members who you trust have wisdom, who can help you in the choice, because it's a very important choice. Today we have this idea in some people's minds that, you know, it's like buying a car. If I don't like it, I'll sell it. No. Trust me, no. Getting married is not like that. One, if you don't plan, you know, for children and just leave it, as we say, leave it like that, and you end up with a child, then you're stuck for the rest of your life, even if you end up getting a divorce. And the aftermath of a divorce is not easy. There's a lot of trauma that could come with it. The other thing is that sometimes you're in a situation where even divorce may not be an option. I'm not going to get into examples and details right now, but what I'm saying is it's not as easy as some people think. Some you think, okay, I'll try it out. It's not like dating, where you date someone and then you just break up and everyone goes separate ways. Getting married is different, my dears. Therefore, we have to take this serious. Not just anybody, well, you know, I was attracted to their looks, I was attracted to, you know, their position in life and so on and so forth. That's not enough. So consultation is very important. It is crucial. Number 4, and this is very important. When we find the person that we believe fits the criteria, we need to confirm that they do. You may see, apparently, they do fit the criteria. This person comes to the mosque, they're practicing, I think they're the most righteous person. You know what? You have a very good soul. You're such an innocent person. You're a good person. You see everyone like you. That's the default. Really, you're a good person and you see everyone like you. Everyone you run into you think is like you. They're a good person as well. But please be aware that there are many actors in society. Some people can act better than the celebrities you know in Hollywood. They will put a show for you, especially if they want you to accept them or they want to be appealing to you or your family. They will put the best show, and I've seen many examples in life. They will come and you are like, wow, I can't believe people like that actually exist in today's world. They're the most ideal person that I would want to choose. But as soon as the makeup begins to fall, you see the real image that you were not expecting. So you give it time, and I respect many of our communities in the West. I would say at least some communities have adopted the culture of an engagement of 6 months, 1 year, even longer. Although you may hear people tell you, no, you should rush right into it. You get engaged today, you get married, you know, in 10 days. That's the worst thing you can do. It is not a safe thing. There is no rush. Take your time until you actually confirm that they actually meet the criteria. Well, how do I confirm? Well, there are different ways. And this lecture is not meant to give you the entire ins and outs and everything that you expect to hear. No, these are just minor bullet points to attract your attention to the importance of this issue so that you can educate yourself on it. There are different books online, there are workshops. If you are really interested in having a successful marriage, then you need to take it serious. When you want to open a business, you do your homework and you study and you ask, right? When you buy a car, you ask around. When you buy a house, you ask around. But when you want to get into a marriage, you know, just let it be organic, you know. Not much homework, not much studying. You think you know it all, some people at least. No, there's much to learn, especially in an age where things have become so complicated, very difficult. You may hear that your grandparents in their time, marriage was so simple and so easy. Yeah, that is true, but that was in their time. Today, with all the complications we have today, with the mental health crisis and many other issues, we need to be very careful in our decision making. What are the things that we should look for when confirming that this person is actually the right person for me? There are different things that we should look for. We'll call them the red flags. If you see red flags, please take them serious. Because I've run into situations where the person has come to me and says, this is what's happening, but still, can we just let that go? And when you give them the advice and say, no, this is not a red flag, you can let go, but inshallah it will work. And then 6 months, 5 months down the road, they come and they tell you, so how do I get a divorce? They don't even want a divorce, mean I'm stuck. But you saw these red flags in the beginning. Yeah, but I was hoping things will change. So the first red flag that we have to be very careful of, and our Imam alayhi salam have highlighted in numerous ahadith, is su'ul khuluq. The person gets anger for anything, gets angry and loses their temper over the most mundane thing. If they are rude towards others, maybe not towards you, because again, they're trying to put a good image in front of you, but with others you see them, they're not very kind, especially with their parents. That's one way to gauge if that person is truly a respectful and a kind person. If they're willing to speak back to their parents, have a rude tone, or even talk about them behind their back in such a way, then who do you think you are being their spouse? They're going to not talk about you or not be rude to you? No. The most important people in their life, their parents, they are willing to treat in such a way. So you think they're going to treat you any better? Maybe for now they will, but trust me, after the marriage is done, they will show you the real them. So it's important to keep that in mind whenever you have realized that. We're not saying the spouse you're looking for is going to be perfect, but at least these are certain red flags that you have to be aware of. Unless you know that you have the patience of Asya alayhi salam, the wife of Pharaoh, and you want to be like her. You say, you know what? I want to mimic Asya. Even if my husband was as bad as Pharaoh, I'll be the Asya of the time. I mean, if you really have confidence in that, then go for it. But most people don't have the Asya personality. It's not that easy, right? We don't want to set ourselves up for something that we cannot handle. Like telling someone, why don't you try carrying 500 pounds when you know they can't carry more than 50? You know your limits. We have a very beautiful saying attributed to the Prophet, Rahimallahu mri'in arifa qadra nafsih. May the mercy of Allah be upon one who knows their self-capacity. How much patience do you have? How much capacity? Can you tolerate such a behavior, or you can't live with that behavior? So the first red flag is what? Ill-natured, su'ul khuluq. The second red flag is a person who does not take responsibility for their actions. Every time a mistake happens, it is everyone's fault but them. It's never their fault. This time, next time, third time, you're with them, you see, you talk to them, you experience different things together, and every time it's the whole world's fault. Never it is their fault. They're not willing to take responsibility. Then guess what? This person is going to give you a hard time because they're not willing to take responsibility for their actions. They're irresponsible. The third or the fourth, overly sensitive. If you're willing to walk on eggshells with your partner for the rest of your life, then go for it. But if you can't and you think it's difficult, which I agree it is, then be wary. If you find that that person is extra sensitive, it's okay to be sensitive, we're all sensitive to an extent. But if somebody's overly sensitive, you have to measure your words many times before you express them to them. You have to be very formal in dealing with them. Well, you can't live with someone with formalities all your life. You have to interact with that person, live together, eat together, and have a life together as spouses. So if they are very sensitive and they create a problem over the most mundane thing, then maybe they're not the right person for you. What's another? And I'll conclude with this one. One of the most dangerous and most obvious red flags that you should look for is their friends, who they hang out with. Because through that you can really tell. We're not saying that every time a person hangs out with specific type of people, they are exactly the same. But oftentimes they are affected by the environment they are in. So if you know that this person chooses the worst of friends, then that person doesn't have wise decision. then that person is not a safe person to be around. So all these red flags, when you see them, take them serious, investigate further. It's never too late to call it off as long as you have not yet entered into the actual marriage. Of course, there are many more red flags that could be highlighted, but we are not here again to highlight everything about this topic. It's just to stimulate our minds to take it serious, to think more and to seek more education in this regard. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us and tells the Holy Prophet in the first verse that He has revealed to him, Iqra, read. And there's an important significance to this. Read. We need to read. Reading has been abandoned in this new generation, unfortunately. Rarely do people read. Oh, give me a TikTok 1 minute that tells me all I need to know about marriage. That's impossible. I can't give you a 1 minute TikTok about marriage, or 5-minute video, or a 10-minute video. This is your life. This is a decision that is very important. So you should give it some of your time. If you give it more time, more consideration, it will give you good results. Because remember, the decisions and choices we make in our present will shape our future. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the honor of these nights and the honor of the martyr of these nights, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, to grant all of our youth, all of our brothers and all of our sisters the best of wisdom in making the best of choices in their life, including that which has to do with selecting their life partner. Dua is very important, my dears. Do not underestimate the power of dua. There's a verse in the Holy Quran that some of our ulama recommend for those who are seeking to find the right spouse. One of these verses is the verse of Zakaria alayhi salam. رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْنِ فَرْدًا وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ الْوَارِثِينَ. It's an important dhikr, important verse. You can repeat as many times as you can with the hope of finding the person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees fits you the best, insha'Allah. Dua is powerful. Do you have to say it in a specific way? No. It could be in your own words. As long as it's coming from the heart, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you, insha'Allah, your wishes. Dua on the day of Ashura was an integral component in the span of the 12 or 14 hours of Ashura, from the morning all the way to the evening. Dua was seen in Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and almost every step he takes, he's always connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's always mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking Him for help when he is tired, when he is thirsty, when he's wounded, when he's in pain. He says, أَنْتَ ثِقَتِي فِي كُلِّ كَرْبٍ. Thiqati, you are my trust, or the person that I fully trust and rely on in every hardship. Only if we take that verse from the dua of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and implement it in our life. If you really believe that Allah is your thiqah, the person you trust the most, then put all your trust in Him. Turn to Him with your heart like Imam Hussein alayhi salam has turned to Him with all of his heart. Let's turn our hearts towards Karbala and salute our beloved Imam on this night. Assalamu ala al-Husayn wa ala Ali ibn al-Husayn wa ala أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. All together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. O Allah, we ask you by the love of Hussein, by the love of the Ahlul Bayt, to hasten the glorious reappearance of our beloved 12th Imam, to grant us all the success to be amongst his sincere and devoted assistants. O Allah, we beg you, we ask you to cure all those who are ill. O Allah, we beg you, we ask you to fulfill all of our hajat and to shower our marhumin with your massive mercy, to send to their arwah the thawab of this majlis, along with Al-Fatiha and 3 times Surah Al-Ikhlas, along with a loud salawat. We have 7 minutes for Q&A if you guys have any questions from the brother's side, the sister's side. Yes, Brother Amin. There are actually probably a million red flags, but I just highlighted these 5, yeah.
The 3 of them that I got was anger, especially small stuff towards parents, sensitivity, walking on eggshells, who their friends are. What were the other ones?
The other ones were, well, we said their rudeness, or well, high sensitivity, Ahsant, he mentioned that. We also mentioned their, trying to remember, who their friends were. Their sensitivity, their ill-naturedness, which is su'ul khuluq, and their rudeness, especially to their parents. Irresponsible, ahsanti, thank you so much. You can tell I'm getting old. Irresponsible, yeah.
Got it. So that was blaming everyone else instead of...
Yeah, exactly. Blaming everyone for their mistake, yeah.
So I know that the intent for the lecture was for people who are looking to get married. Many of us, of course, are already married. And as you say these red flags, we think about ourselves and we think, oh, maybe I might have some of these red flags. What advice do you give to people who are already married who might, have some of these characteristics?
So once one is already in trouble and they're stuck, as we say, I mean, you can't just back out when you realize these qualities exist in your spouse. What you do is what we call, number 1, sabr to an extent, and number 2, you try to find solutions to these problems, because some of these problems, some of these issues could be solved. The fact that you're already in it makes you kind of forced to find that solution. When you weren't in it, you don't have to be in the position of trying to find a solution that may work, may not work. But after you have become already in it, it's hard to get out of it. Then at that point, you really have to find and consult those who know to find the best of solutions to fix the problem or live with it to an extent if it's livable. But there are cases, and I hate to say it, this is like the last resort, where there is no solution, and at that point you're between 2 roads. Either you continue to suffer and be patient, or you take a different route. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Sayyidina, doctor. Take one. Okay. Sister has a question. I'll come back to you, doctor. Yeah, 1 second, inshallah.
A couple of my friends have also asked this. Is it haram to be an organ donor?
Okay, yeah, you're asking a very sensitive question. So this is contested among ulama. There are different views on this. Some ulama say you can only donate the organ, if you're talking about after death, to a Muslim who's in need of it, who their life is dependent on it. Some ulama say whether they're Muslim or not, it doesn't matter. But the precaution is to avoid the organ donation on the ID. That's what I can say for now. Yes, doctor, go ahead. Yeah, I thought you had a question. Yeah.
It was a very quick question. So
Yeah.
you've given really good advice, but my question is, based on what study did you get these advice? And if it was based on a study, was it from a Western study or a Muslim social study?
Ahsan. No, it's not based on anything Western. It's all based on our Islamic traditions and what we derive from them.
And my other question is, do we have a new socialist that we can rely on, that studies that we can read, studies that we can investigate?
Yeah, very good question.
In our modern
Very good.
world.
So there are general principles, I really like this question because it opens the door for many other discussions. There are social sciences that Dr. Yaqub was referring to. Social sciences, like for example, sociology, right? Psychology, and these sciences. How much of it can we incorporate in our lives, in our decision making? Where these social sciences are founded by people who are non-Muslim, let's say Westerners, can we dismiss them and say, you know what, we don't take anything from non-Muslims? Or no, we take what is good and we leave out what is bad. Now, how do we know what is good and what is bad when we're not even experts in that field? This is where we have to come back to the general principles and parameters of Islam. And this is the really tricky and slippery slope sometimes, because sometimes we allow our ego and emotions to say, but I like this principle and I'll tweak any Islamic principle just to be aligned with that principle that Freud or whoever, from the psychologist or the sociologist has promoted or has taught. So it's important for us to keep this in mind. Psychology, sociology, these sciences are usually founded based on theories, right? And these theories are man-made. So there's no way we can compare them to the religious establishment, the divine revelation. Yani if I am between Freud giving me an opinion and Rasulullah giving me an opinion, as a Muslim who believes in the asma of Rasulullah, there's no way I'll go to Freud and leave Rasulullah. But if there's no contradiction, yani Rasulullah gives me a general principle and Freud gives me certain tips that are aligned with that principle, then I'll take both. So really, when you're saying, do we have sociologists that have made studies? There are many sociologists out there from the Western world that have studies about marriage, but unfortunately, some of them go against some of our values. So one has to be well equipped with Islamic values and the general guidelines and parameters, so they know when to stop, or they know when an advice that's coming from that sociologist is actually against the Sharia. For example, if sociologists tell you that a man should just not get married ever. For example, just live your life like that and just go clubbing every week. Just hypothetically, if there's such an advice. Of course, that contradicts the advice of Rasulullah that says, تناكحوا تناسلوا إلى آخره النكاح سنتي, nikah is my sunnah. He condemns staying without marriage if you don't have a real reason, so on and so forth. So we have to compare the two. If there's no clash, then the more the merrier. But if there's a clash, then if a person, again, embraces a religious monotheistic worldview, then of course that worldview is going to take precedence over the theories that are manufactured by the fallible human mind. Yeah.
I'll take the next opportunity myself.
I have a sister here.
Okay.
Yes, Alwiya, go ahead. Give her the microphone. And Dr. Munzawi, you're already married. I mean, I can't help you anymore. Oh, no. Is Sister Barb here? Okay. That way I know what to say to you. Okay. Go ahead, sister.
Our lecture a few days ago was about forgiveness and reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you reach out to somebody in terms of like forgiveness, even when you're not at fault, before enough is enough?
Ahsanti. Depending, first of all, on that person. Are they a parent? If they're a parent, there's like limitless. It's hard to stop somewhere, because a parent has a very special right. If they're a mom or a dad. If they're a sibling, it's also important, but when it reaches a point where your dignity is on the line, and I'm talking about your real dignity, not the illusionary dignity that we make for ourselves. Sometimes we think that, it's against my dignity to go and say salam to someone, but it's actually against my ego, not dignity. So we have to keep a line between the two. Really, when your dignity is on, like you keep reaching out to that person, and that person is ignoring, disrespecting, being so rude, making you feel so unworthy, of course at that point there's a limit. But again, with mom and dad, it should never be the case, right? Because in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them that special right. And then even with mom and dad, there is a point where between you and Allah, you cannot do it anymore. Then Allah knows. But never allow the ego to represent you and be the pride in this sense. Yes. Sorry, I think they have a question from the sister, and maybe you have a question there too? No? So the sister has a question right here. Yes, sister, go ahead. Yeah, take the microphone.
Okay, So the thing I was asking is, so like my brother has told me this. I don't know if it's true or not, but he told me that all Muslims can go to heaven, but you can go to hell for a limited time, and it depends on what you did. Is that true?
Okay, so first of all, let's not plan on going to hell, right? Inshallah, we all plan on going to heaven. That's number one. Hell is promised for people that insist on sinning and, God forbid, die without repenting. But if you really try your best to be a good Muslim, which I know, inshallah, you and many, all of us are trying, as long as you're trying your best and you're always repentant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have hope in Allah that He will give you heaven and paradise, inshallah. And pray to Him to save you from hellfire. So it's not a good idea to even think that, you know what, I might end up going to hell for a few years. Yeah, I'll take 20, 30, 50, 100 years and go to heaven. It's not that easy. Like one moment in hell cannot be tolerated, right? So plan on, I will never want to ever be in hellfire. Like I will do anything to stay away from hellfire. I'll ask God and beg Him every night, please protect me from hellfire. So this should be the mindset. Inshallah, just hope and pray to Allah and exercise your Islam as much as you can so that you can avoid being in that destiny, inshallah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm probably running out of time, but
Go ahead, Dr.
you
Muntadher.
offered some good advice about finding a mate. Now, if you can make it easier for the youth to see how they can connect to figure that out. You know, back home, a lot of times you were planned, the marriage was planned, and you got together and you were done.
Yeah.
But here there is opportunities to get together, to talk, get to know each other. How can they do that in a halal way?
Very good question. You know what? I think we need to be transparent about this topic, right? And we have to kind of get away from some of our insecurities and fears as a community. The first thing is we need to come together more often. Simple as that. People meet each other because they're exposed to each other. If I only see you on the last 3 nights of Muharram once a year and we're sad and we're crying, I think we're not going to have a chance to meet and maybe have mutual attraction. There needs to be, of course, with an Islamic attire, with Islamic manners, there needs to be more of these gatherings. There's so much initiatives out there, you know, different activities that are done, but there's not much participation. So that's number one. Number two, the parents have to work together and work with the community management, with leadership, to establish ways by which their children can connect. We are at a time where you can't expect like before. Like before, in the old days, the parents of a woman, for example, of a daughter, they just wait until the door is knocked. And as far as the man, when they're ready to get married, all their mother has to do is go to the matchmaker or, you know, ask around. They'll get different photos and whatever. But that doesn't work anymore, unfortunately. Which means that there has to be more effective ways of connecting. We have to get creative. Islam gives us a very wide parameter or a very wide frame. It's not like either this or that. No, we have different ways that it can be done. Unfortunately, we put culture into this, and because this is, you know, we make up our, you know, certain cultural taboos and say it's a taboo. For example, Musa, when he went to Madian, who proposed to who? Musa proposed to Safura, the daughter of Shu'aib, or her father offered her to him. Now, in our culture, if you do that, it's like, what? You know, that sounds like you really want to get rid of her. No, no, no. He doesn't want to get rid of her. He found that you're the right person for her. So if we get out of that very old mentality and that very, I don't know, I don't want to criticize it because it's respected in some cultures, but we have to be very open to this. Otherwise, we will be losing our children and they will be taking different routes. So we have to be open-minded, we have to work together, and it's okay if they come to know each other and it doesn't work. The fear that many people have, what if they come to know each other and it doesn't work out? So what? It doesn't work out. Just like how they would get married and then 3 months later they'll get a divorce. Which one is easier? That it doesn't work out prior to the marriage and they just break it off? Well, Maulana, we had to announce it in front of the whole community, so now it's like, feels bad to say we broke it off. Then don't announce it until you have finalized 100%. There's no ayah in the Quran that says, announce your engagement, otherwise you'll be in hellfire. We don't have such a verse. We don't have a hadith like that. Therefore, you don't have to announce anything. In fact, we have some traditions that say, asirru al-khutbata wa a'linu nikah. Engagement, keep it secret. Nikah, publicize it, meaning the actual celebration of wedding and nikah and so on and so forth. So I mean, we have to get out of that box that we have put ourselves in. Yeah, we have to get out of it, and we have to use our minds together and create maybe committees, do whatever we can to get out of that crisis that we are in. In fact, it's a crisis. I mean, I've visited multiple cities and everyone's complaining from the same thing, but again, we're not doing anything about it. Yeah. Anything else from the sisters before we conclude? Okay. Oh, yes, Maryam.
So basically, in our generation now, people that like want to know them before getting married, you know, like Muslims, they have this thing where it's like a halal relationship, and I see all my friends at like this high school doing it, but they're all doing like stuff you should be doing when you're married, like, you know.
Okay, so there's no, I don't know what you're referring to if you're talking about, okay, listen, so halal relationship means marriage. So anything outside of that is not marriage, right? We have to be very clear. And there are different forms of marriage, but at least marriage that we know, nikah that we know, requires the consent and the permission of the guardian, the parents. So these friends, whatever they're engaging is unlawful simply because the girl is not getting the guardian's consent. If there is no guardian consent, there is no halal relationship. So keep that in mind. Okay? Ahsantu. Yes, Abu Karar.
Shukran.
Afwan, Maryam. Huh? What did he do? La, so this one with the consent of the father. We said, yeah, with the consent of the father. Whenever the father consents to the marriage, be it the permanent or the temporary, we have no problem. But the father has to consent. But if I, a high school 16-year-old, find a girl who's also 16-year-old and say, you know what, why don't we get married in a halal way, and then her father has no idea, that's not marriage. That amounts to zina, adultery, or haram relationship. Why? Because there's no marriage to start with. Yeah, but all you have to do is say certain words. Yes, but that needs the permission of the father of the women who basically is still under the care of her father. Inshallah, that is clear? Okay, very good. Thank you very much, sisters, for listening. Brothers, thank you very much. I'm so sorry we're out of time, but we just have to use some of that time for the dinner, inshallah. And after that, we go to salah, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.